Haven't seen it really played in a while. The big thing here, I think, is that there's a lot of mono-color decks and United being played. Um, and like the big thing there is the removal is pretty weak. With the removal being weak, um, it's kind of one of those interesting options where like because Reylo was primarily shield dependent, and was a bit weak to multi-die removal or just like removal in general at times. I think it's in a good position right now where because it can, bust through shields, it'll be good versus like the moddable hero decks. Um, and because like you don't want to mitigate nearly as much versus United decks, but shielding up is very good. I think it puts it in a really good place there, as well as versus like indirect and whatnot. But we're gonna see what's left over from the deck, kind of post rotation. So just one of those things I want to see what's going on and give you guys a deck build and see what comes of it. Especially with like we're seeing mono blue villain like do very well, mono blue hero do very well. So it kind of makes sense that if a deck can run both sets, that it should be in an okay spot. So upgrade wise, we have a lot of the blue stuff that just stands out quite a bit. But we're gonna go through the choices more or less, and I'll adjust for kind of different things. So um, I'm gonna skip most of the complete terrible cards, but I'll probably look at and consider some of the other ones. So Knighthood is a very weird one in that we get a shield. It costs 0, so it's essentially 0 for 1 health. We're gonna be quite poor because we'll most likely be spending into upgrades and maybe some extra damage or something along those lines. So I think Knighthood's very good, especially since Kylo wants to pass a shield over to ping a damage, and Rey wants shields in order to special and kind of get those benefits from them. So Knighthood I think is an easy two of. They're also both apprentices, so something to keep in mind for that. Um, you know, I think BD one's an interesting one. I'm gonna put one for now. The rationale when I put like a one of like this is like the card might be viable if we're missing kind of slots, like we just have extra space, and it fits what we're looking to do with it. It makes sense for us to run it. So that's kind of that. Jedi Holocron is also another weird one. The draw three is like okay, paying one to draw three, that's fine. It does the resource ramp thing, and then you can like overwrite later. So like I'd put it in there for now, and like this is just my normal deck building process. I don't just go, oh, I want this, that, bam, 30 card deck, magical, loop land, like every deck's amazing. No, it's kind of just this process. Like all right, normally I start off and examine, what the deck does, what I expected to do well, what I expected to do bad. So the thing here with Kylo is like his dies essentially 1/2/2 resource. I disregard the blank in the discard side, um, just because discard your opponent would have to burn out a bunch of cards in order for that to be viable. So as far as I'm concerned, those are two blanks. Um, but we get the availability to shift the shield over to Rey and get 1 damage in the process, which is pretty solid. And then the obvious, if your special hits a shield and gets blocked, you get to reroll the die, which is kind of just where the deck is the main bread and butter. Then we have Rey, relatively similar in that regard. We have 1 damage, 1 shield. Those are like so mediocre. But the 2 melee damage and the 2 shield is where the resource are like the big three sides you're looking for normally. And then obviously, if there's a shield there, you can go from 1 shield to 3 shield. Like you're going to be in a positive position. And now you have Rey's thing that can blank a villain die, or flip Kylo to a special. So those are quite good spots to be in for that. So I think that like makes realistic sense. So more or less because we know that both specials require a shield available, we're going to be heavy on shields in order to make sure we're one stopping damage that we're taking without actually necessarily having to mitigate, and two getting the biggest benefits from these kind of dice. And like knighthood is one of those interesting things because you don't have to give your character a shield. So there are some situations where like maybe you want to just kind of poke in the 1 damage. You're okay on shields and whatnot like that, so you could just knighthood the opponent in a shield and then Kylo special through it. especially when you're just coming up short or you have like an available focus or something along those lines. Malice is not good for what we're doing here. Neiman training is one of those ones where you have to have like the big die to special focus. Um, Sacred Jedi Text is interesting ramp wise. It's just not. You require a lot of rerolls, and if you hit the resource with it, then you can do good stuff. Without it, it's brutal. Yoda's lightsaber has potential. If we generate too many shields, then Yoda's lightsaber throwing shields as an unblockable can be quite good, especially if people are playing, riot shields and armor platings right now. Um, then like that's fine. Otherwise, it's like so. But the fact that it costs one, it at least gets a chance to be in the deck to begin with. Um, Dooku's lightsaber, we don't have a Sith, and it doesn't have resource sides. Like it can go away. Um, I think Force Pull is an interesting card that like you can consider to run sometimes. It can screw with people, but it's just not actually good. I don't think I noticed this before. Hmm. The 2-for-1 is terrible. The +3 is interesting. That rolls me. Roll it. Oh. Any player can discard a card to reroll this die. That's not good at all. In general, the 2 cost, only the +3 and the resource were the sides that I felt were viable there. The +3 is actually just very good, like ancient lightsaber esque, but this card is pretty terrible, especially with the ability for your opponent to reroll it. Um, Jarrow Tapple's lightsaber, this one's actually fine. Good, like 1/2 +2 shield resource is like okay, this is whatever. It's serviceable if we need a 2-drop. I think Jedi lightsaber is actually the big one here. So most people consider like, or normally when you think of this card, you think like, all right, I have a Jedi's, so I'm going to get 2 shields, and then this is kind of just ridiculous, right? But even if we're not Jedi, even though we have access to the Knighthood to become Jedi, without it, we're still looking. The first resolution would be equivalent to melee and a shield, +2 melee and a shield, 2 shield, 2 shield resource and a shield. So if we play this and then like overwrite it, within a round or two, the benefit is quite strong. Like just the shield itself is what we're taking up a 0 cost slot for with Knighthood, and we'll be likely running on guard, and it sets up both of your specials as well as the power action on Kylo. Um, so just going in there being defensive and then flipping out into some big thing later or even the same round. The 1 shield becomes the equivalent to an on guard. If you are a Jedi, then you're getting 2 shields. You're getting the equivalent to a full value of resource or full resource value, like its defensive stance. So I think Jedi lightsaber as a 2 of here makes sense. At least at the very to start. If we find we have way too many shields, nothing to do with them, kind of have to ask ourselves like, hey, do we just win the game anyways, or did we just not do anything and that was bad? I think Neiman Mastery is a easy consideration. We'd probably run 4 of these if we could. Our specials are super important. We can special chain with these now, and they work as well with flipping any of our upgrades. So looking for any upgrades that make benefits from this is massive. I think Palpatine's lightsaber is actually quite good. We're gonna put it as a 1 of. The thing here is it's gonna be how many abilities I have. If I have 4 abilities, so like let's say 2 Neimans and 2 Shians, which is the likely output. I think at least 1 Palpatine saber makes sense. So if we end up doing Neiman, or even if we end up doing Untamed Power, now it's like, oh, okay, like this is much more interesting. Where if you have one of the 2-drop abilities, and now you Palpatine lightsaber, and let's say it costs you 1, like this is amazing for 1. I used to play DH17 all the time. And that thing looked terrible by comparison to this. It would pretty much, this resource became a blank, and this two direct became a 2-for-1, and it was just like, wow, okay, yeah, whatever. Like I'll play this all day. Playing 2 becomes hard because it'll be based on like the number of times we overwrite. But if we're finding that it makes sense to do it, like let's say we have those 6 2-drop abilities, and we have 2. Hold on. What's the other ability I was talking about? Or maybe it's just 4 of those 2-drop abilities, and then we have Sheehan Mastery. it might make sense. The only dilemma is none of those have redeploy. So, if we put something out and then that guy's getting obliterated, like this isn't going to be very good because those things don't redeploy. So you would already be like light on slots, but it may make an interesting point just because if you can get it down for the one resource, or like play it for two and then get one back, like it's just in a really good position there. Recover this lightsaber if we needed to remove shields frequently, like it is a okay option similar to the way that we use Jedi lightsaber. But the thing is, because Jedi lightsaber in theory is always available and it interacts with a lot of our other synergy options, is just much better. But recovered lightsaber would be like so okay if there was a ton of shields going around and you just kind of couldn't dedicate Kylo's special that many times. Republic Jedi armor. We're not a Jedi, so it's much worse here. Um, Shicho training is trash. We don't have a Sith for his teachings. Saresu's okay. In theory, it's two shield resource. Without having like 3-drop Saresu and then a focus, and like, all right, that's fine as a 2-drop. I think Untamed Power is actually the good one though. I'm gonna put it as a 2 of. This may be incorrect. So the weird thing here with Untamed Power is that it if your opponent doesn't have a die for you to mitigate with, like the timing for Untamed Power can be a little rough. It may require earlier rerolls, um, but in general, because it's like, okay, resource is good, +2 melee should be good, and then the special is going to potentially give more value than you get from Neiman Mastery, like the die itself, not the put in play included, because that blows us out of the water. Because it's like, okay, if it's on my hero, I can get a shield and remove a die showing damage. So base expectation is to remove a die showing at least 2 damage, right? So if you mitigate a 2 damage die and you get a shield, it's the equivalent to 3 damage. Um, or 2 and a health, however you want to call it. But roughly it's 3 damage. So uh, that's worth about a resource and a half, meaning that Untamed Power has above curve on 2 of the sides. It's the equivalent to like 3. On the villain side, it gets you a damage and then removes a die not showing damage. So not showing damage can be a little rougher, but if you take a disrupt that was going to be viable, if you take a resource that was going to be viable, um, those are equivalent to 2 damage in my value system. So once again, you're getting a damage plus, essentially stopping 2 damage. So it's another 3 damage swing, or a resource and a half worth. Um, so like that pays for itself pretty massively. If you hit the damage, obviously the damage was good, and then the resource is a resource. You paid for half of the card. Um, the base concept with most of my value system is that uh, any you pretty much want an upgrade to be able to pay for itself within 2 rounds, 100%, or not 100%, but close enough. So like 50% of the die, at least it needs to be able to pay for itself in 2 rounds. After that, it's like, okay, what other benefits do you get? Um, so in the situation where if you resolve a special and then any other side, it went a little above paying for itself. Um, Past that, we tend to look for cards that are, let's say, are more expensive than 2 and can pay for itself in 2 rounds, because what it means is that uh, every subsequent round after is a very large kind of just like value dip. So like Shein Mastery could actually pay for itself in the 1 round that you actually cast it, meaning that each subsequent round you're just getting ridiculous amounts of value from this 4 cost. And because it could pay for itself in a single round, it then like, well, how much value did this get over time? Like, so if you Shein Mastery and either hit the 2 resource or the special to mitigate 2 and deal 2, both of those, or all 3 of those sides, are equivalent to 2 resources. So you play the Shein Mastery, you use it, you roll out, you use it again like that. Now each subsequent time, like every time you're getting, in theory, 2 resources, 3 damage, the specials, you're getting a resource and a half worth. It's a very large amount of value, and that's why Shein Mastery like operates so strongly and is easily like a tool in every deck that could reliably run it. But I think Obtained Power here has some play, especially since we lost a lot of our options. I don't like Vibro or Brigadier. I really dislike ones that don't have like the resource side, to be honest. I think Anakin's lightsaber is quite good. I'm fine having it as a 2 of, just because it does like pretty amazing things. The two shields that we get is worth a resource. The shield we give the opponent is technically a negative half a resource. So we gained half a resource on that. So this is like it costs 2.5. Um, but usually we put a shield on a guy we don't care about right away. So we deal with that shield much later, meaning that our two shields were impactful right away. And then the other thing is we have Kylo's special that operates to blow through the shield. So you could actually put the shield on a guy that you were planning to hit, get yourself the two shields to protect your guy. Kylo special, the pass that shield, get a damage, and reroll the die, and you're just like, wow, that's amazing. And then all five of Anakin lightsaber sides that aren't blank are the equivalent to a resource or two damage. So it's like, wow, this die is just really strong. And even though it's unique, it's like I want to find it early, or at least at that point I could potentially overwrite it into like the Sheen, or let's say if we have some other 3-drop, and then play the other one. Cal Kestis lightsaber with the ability change isn't very good. Force repulse requires light and isn't very good either. I think the Jairus lightsaber is interesting just because if your opponent's villain, you could like blank their die, but that's also not very good. The lightsaber is probably like the awful card that you may just have to run anyways. The thing is you want redeploys, and just the Anakin's lightsaber may not be good enough. I'd like to have the third redeploy, especially in an upgrade based deck, just so that we have options of like, okay, I did whatever with Neiman, and then stuff was going on, and then like I don't know, stuff went bad. I need to switch this into a redeploy to switch to the other guy. Mace Windu's lightsaber is like okay. If you were able to deal the 2 unblockable and defeat a guy with it, then that and the +3 are worth a resource and a half. And it could kind of get to the standards it needs to get to, but for 3, I think we just stay the heck away from it. Pong Krell's lightsaber. So you can pay a resource to get a die copy of it. So let me think. We're looking at, because the special deals 2 to 2 characters, until you've defeated the first guy, it's reasonable for the cost. The dilemma is just that like how important or useful is that? If you have additional money coming in, you can spend the resource to get into that, and now you could eventually be paying a resource to try to get 2 damage out of it, which is like okay, it's like fine. I think Sheen training in theory is also quite good. The big thing here is that it's similar to Anakin's lightsaber, and that is a bunch of 2s that are worth 2 damage or a resource. The dilemma is it doesn't have a put and play effect, but there is the potential for specialing into a Sheen mastery that was in the discard pile or maybe died on the other character. I'm going to put a 1 of here, but this is likely getting cut. I just like to leave it there as an available option so that we have like consistent damage. Chicho mastery is Dookie. God, why are you so bad, Sith Warblade? It does have redeploy though, and it may be considerably better than regular lightsaber. So regular lightsaber is 3 for 1, +2 melee. The special's 2 unblockable. The other 2 sides for shield and resource match. So, the 2 melee we have here is the equivalent to the special. The 3 melee lost the resource side, but our modified side got 2 additional damage and gained a resource cost. The dilemma becomes that because we dealt the damage to ourselves, each of those sides kind of shrunk by comparison. And since a lot of it was similar, the 2 weak die sides matching are just much worse. The 2 melee is or was even. Yeah, so this is arguably much worse. We're now looking at the 3 for 1 turned into a modified. Our +2 modified became a base, but at the cost of a damage. And this 3 melee is the equivalent to just the unblockable. So yeah, I'd rather just stick with the regular lightsaber. Soresu Mastery is a solid card. We just can't run it with having Neiman's and Sheehan's. Terran's lightsaber is like the Sheen Mastery. Actually, Terran's lightsaber is exactly a Sheen's Mastery, but worse. I mean, not Sheen Mastery, Sheen, but worse. The melee is useful. Sorry, it's not worse per se. It's considerably worse here because of the shield concept. Like we can already bust through shields, so that doesn't really do nearly as much here. Force Storm is an interesting option. Um, very big sides. It'll be based on whether we could like get to 4 reasonably quick or reliably. Death Field is also an option. We'll put one there for that. One for that. Those are getting cut, but I like to start with that concept. So yes, there are 21 upgrades. I'm just hitting save, and then we'll go back in. You guys get like a sneak peek at my set of decks. All right. So we'll go back in. We'll go check the supports. If we have enough blue abilities, this makes sense. I'm going to put the 2 there because 0 for 1 solid, and there's pretty good odds that I'm just running straight up, Untamed Power, Neiman Mastery, Sheen Mastery. So there's some situations where you could, like, nab the resource round 1 and then be like, oh shit, and then, like, Forbidden Lore straight into Sheen Mastery. This Bloodletting is interesting here. So I used to run Power from Pain, and the theory from Power from Pain was that so you would deal 1 damage to yourself, it costs 0, and you could flip your character upgrade die of the person who took the damage. So Bloodletting costs 1, but lets you do it every single round. In a situation where you're, let's say, Bloodletting into a shield to flip raise die to the special to then get 2 shields, you're going +1 shield there. And because you keep the die, it's not a negative, but the resource for the Bloodletting is. So you'd have to pretty much net the +1 shield or +1 damage twice in order for that to have paid for itself. And the focus might be that viable because the theory is because you're getting the stuff for free. It's quite strong. So like, especially in situations where Kylo's being attacked, that was always the main issue because you'd have to somehow get shields on the guy who's being attacked. Whereas if Rey was being attacked, if Kylo got shields, whatever, he'd just pass one over. And then you're in a much better position in order to try to replicate the shields. This does the inverse. Because Kylo would be attacked, you can ping your Rey to try to set up shields for Kylo, which is much better. The issue will be is if Rey's being attacked, Rey can't reliably ping herself to set up her own shields. So it does kind of the counter situation, which is just overall very interesting. So I'm gonna put it there as a 1-of. I think this is gonna make it in the deck as a 1-of or potentially a 2-of to start because of how interesting it is, and we can just see if it's just shit terrible or not. The other thing is it can come down late. So we did whatever stuff. It looks like we're stuck with 1 die, and then like someone claims, and then you're just like, all right, I'll play the Bloodletting. I'll ping my guy. I'll flip it. I'll do some silly shit. Terrible cards. Actually, we can't have gray. I don't even know why gray's available there. So, like, Force Connection is the interesting one. This was pretty bad when easy pickings existed. If we felt Bloodletting was atrocious, kind of like in nature, Force Connection does the thing where, like, okay, I flipped a Kylo die to a special. I Force Connection. I can now have a Rey special. The problem is that the matching symbols have to be off of the other character. So if let's say Kylo's die got mitigated or used up, I wouldn't be able to Force Connect at all. So the differential there would be like this versus Bloodletting is: do you decide to take a damage and not have to worry about this very specific requirement, or do you just decide to never take that damage and always have the specific requirement? So it is an interesting option if you just wanted to like be able to do that, but for Force Connection is one of those ones you'd have to do early in a round, and you'd have to have both characters in the pool. So it's just much worse. Bloodletting being allowed at the end of the round or after stuff kind of goes down is far more interesting. Uh, Prescient Leap, I think, is that one that I would run because we can't run Unshackle. So if someone plays Captured, Prescient Leap eats the Captured. Like, you just pay for one and you straight up eat the Captured, and then not have to worry about it. But the other thing is it has play in general into pretty much every other deck. Because you can kill an upgrade with it that costs less than or equal to the number of resources on the support, it means you could. One second. So, like, every set of actions where you resolve 2 dice, you can put onto it. So it's not going to take 4 rounds to get up to it. It could just be like you put all your dice in the pool, and now you resolve 2. Okay, you put on a resource. You resolve 2. You put on a resource. Especially with our specials that re-roll back into the pool. It's one of those situations where we could get a resource on this without actually losing a die. You Neiman Mastery special, okay. Flip, let's say Ray and something else. Ray's special, okay. This gets the resource. It rolls the Ray die re-rolls out, and you just like stop there. And then like maybe your other die's on melee. So now it's like, okay, I hit the melee side, and boom, next action I can resolve my melees, get another resource on this, and this is going to be very big for killing off big things like Vibro Sword. Um, the fact that it can hit any upgrade in general does also just get you stuff where you're like, oh, Ahsoka has a knighthood, I'll eat it. Because the knighthood Ahsoka things actually can be a really big pain in the ass. But even get to 1 or get to 2, I'm gonna eat my opponent's Neiman Mastery, um, and like those things can be pretty big. If I get to eat a support, this would just be disgusting. But I think Prescient Leap here is very solid. It's actually probably a 2 of, to be honest, but I just want to run 1 for now. It's one of those ones where like everything costs so much that I don't want to like try anything silly. Um, this thing's like, it starts off terrible, right? But it costs 1, so it's like, well, what do I actually get from this? We have shield sides on Ray. Pretty much every upgrade we have has shield sides. So for 1, uh, the mod 2 shield side, if you can resolve it, is good. The resources, pays for itself, is good. The focus is very viable. So like I'd be fine running it as a 1 of. It's a Jedi if we had a spot Jedi card that we were trying to run, like Jedi Mind Trick, or I don't know, Discipline Mind or something, if we were just in dire straits. Because that, like, the thing here is that if you have Knighthoods and that, then it's not so hard to do it. If you had, let's say, like 2 Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit, it also gives you that weird out where like one second, you're like raying into a bunch of shields, and the Qui-Gon Spirit now can just like 4 or 5 into somebody. Um, 3 lessons is an interesting like bloodletting slash the other thing. Um, you have to have a Jedi, so it's like it only triggers off knighthood and or if Qui-Gon Jinn's spirit is there. It also doesn't work on like the upgrade; it only works on the character die. Bloodletting will just let you flip an upgrade, so like you could take a damage and flip a Sheen Mastery to special, and it's like, oh shit. If we had a protector die, like caretaker, but like 2 costs to protect 1 die is atrocious, especially with people skipping um, that stuff right now. Yoda Spirit is so. It's interesting because like if you think of it like this, if the first time you just treat the special like a blank, if you hit 2 focus or 2 shield or whatever, that's worth 1 resource. Okay, 1 resource down is 1 resource to go. Um, so it would pay for itself in 2 rounds in that theory with these 5 sides. And then if you just hit the special to somebody, or the 3 unblockables, like, okay, it's also a Jedi, so it's another one of those things where if you want a Jedi Mind Trick or Discipline Mind, like it gives you that available options, or 3 lessons. So like I said, I'm putting stuff in there because I will just have a 50 card deck to start, and then it'll be like, okay, let me look at the upgrades, thin down the upgrades. Okay, let me look at the removal or the mitigation. Let me thin that down to a reasonable amount. I usually have at least 12 pieces of like mitigation. It's weird here though because of the shields. They're both mitigation and like enablers. So like I could see ourselves having like I don't know, 10 upgrades that have dice, like 14 quote unquote mitigation or removal, and then like 6 slots left. And it's like, where do we go with that? Like I'm fine just leaving stuff there and seeing what happens. The focus is very nice, especially when it comes to specials, because if you, like I said, if you can continue to get that value, it's big. And right, protecting these guys is super important. It's gonna boil down to like what's really going on. But like you would probably re-roll the focuses, unless you felt the coast was clear. Uh, Paying 3 is far too much. Uh, Professor Huyang is hilarious. There's not enough focus to make use of the 2 resource side. If you were capable of like affording to like the ability to play this and play with like good weapons and like the dice were good off of it, um, like there'd be something there because like the 2 focuses would be largely viable. The 2 shields, like okay, it's just a resource. The 2 resource is strong, so like 2 focus and 2 resources are the strong sides. Then it's like 2 shield, and then the leftover 3 sides are just like trash. Um, and it boils down to like the weapon die getting used over and over. Because if you played the weapon, um, and then you got to use the die, and it was worth the equivalent to a resource, it's like okay, it's like Huyang costs 2 now. But the problem is like the round you Huyang, you probably can't play a weapon. If you played whatever abilities first, and then you Huyang, and then you overwrote into a weapon, and then you got the weapon die, then like there's some play there. But you're going so deep that you have to had a reliable like resource engine, and it's just not like you can't reliably do that. Obi-Wan Kenobi spirit. All right. So we're gonna run into an issue where we have too many cards. Once, because like if you get to like 40 out of nowhere, like the the DB will like die. Um, Acute awareness is kind of funny when you just want like a hate card, but I don't think we need that. That thing would be terrible even if we had Ceresu Mastery out because our character die are that bad. Change information is interesting, but you don't really ever want to give your opponent a resource. Forsaken's an auto. Legacy of the Sith is not necessary. Nullify is an auto here. I think On Guard is also an auto. Protect the Younglings is interesting here because remember we were talking about the Jedi cards? So like Qui-Gon's and Yoda's now have like a caution. If you knighthood your own guy, you could essentially caution to either of your guys. So like I'm gonna put it as a one of. It's likely not making it here unless we decided that like Qui-Gon's and Yoda's was very relevant to play. The big issue is that there's a lot of cards for making shields, and we have to be careful that we kind of just don't get stuck. Where an opponent like ramps and we got all these shields, but they don't do anything, and we didn't get damage out, and then like we're waiting for them to just come and blast us with a bunch of things. Oh, these are awful. Wait, yeah, that's terrible. Um, I'm gonna put a stand firm there. It's likely not gonna make it. I don't want to give up a Ray die. Kylo's die can't be given up. We do have like shitty dice with shields, but not as many as some other decks. So Stern Firm could be like a blowout card when you roll out and hit a bunch of shields and it's awful. Um, but it feels not likely so here. Equipment or weapon give up is no bueno. Couldn't give itself up. Mm, Reroll Resolve is poop. Um, 200 dice to damage is in theory is okay. I think because we're not playing with the mindset we're gonna lose a character because we're supposed to shield up that hard that I just don't think we go anywhere near that. Turn on your blue character dice to any side, then you may play in a move event from your hand or discard pile. I'm gonna put one here because there's an interesting combo with Draw Closer where you like so you would turn your die to let's say the like the 2 melee, draw closer for 4, but you'd still have your 2 melee die. So like you would pay 3 to do 4 damage, which is bad, but because you focused your die at the same time, it becomes very interesting. The other thing is, just in general, it would be pay 1 to focus your die. So then, like, do we decide that bloodletting every round isn't as good as potentially apt lesson for a draw closer kill? And that's the weird one you have to like think about, because like Neiman Mastery would pretty much hit the table and stay there. Um, and then it's like, okay, if you natty hit the 1, it's like pay 2 to do 3 and keep the die. If you hit the 2, it's pay 2 to deal 4, which is a great, and keep the die. And it's like, I mean, you have to keep the die realistically in order for that to be worth it at all. Because you have to check, does Dark Closer work with just the special straight up? I never looked. Attunement's interesting. It's not that hard to do. Spot a Jedi or Sith to move 2 abilities from a character to an apprentice character. Like, this one's cute. The thing there with that is, like, if you wanted to shift, like, a Sheehan mastery over, the problem is because Neiman and Sheehan are, like, counterintuitive, you can only get to keep one of them anyways. So, like, you can move an Untamed in the other one to a guy that doesn't have one of them, but, like, outside of that, it's just bad. This would be the R Unshackle, but Prescient Leap would just be better, I think. Defensive Stance costs 1 and makes a shield. I'd rather pay 0 and get 1 shield than pay 1 and get 2 shields. It's just not worth it. Deflecting Slash would be fine. I don't think we need it, though. Discipline Mind if we went the Jedi route. Fluid Riposte is an automatic. We need the removal, and then obviously we're running Sheehan Mastery, so it does that. With Knighthoods, this could set up to be the pay 0, draw 2. Also, if you hit the Qui-Gon or the Yoda, it does the same thing. We can't get the damage for the Sith, and you have to ask yourself how important it is to try to filter through 2 cards, because if you don't hit the Jedi portion, you can't get the resource back. But if it was like 2 Knighthoods, 2 Qui-Gons, and a Yodas, and so for the 5 Jedi essentially cards, I'd consider it if we just didn't have enough cards in deck and we just needed to like filter through. But you're still only getting 2. It's not like you're drawing 3. The draw 3 is much better for free. Like 0 for draw 2 is still good. It's just not that good. Bad cards. Isolation's probably that necessary evil. Just straight up eat a character die. I'm not a huge fan of polarity. When we take into consideration I could just get a shield for 1, but if we don't have options and we need damage, it's viable. The pushing / action cheat, when you just need damage, could get a kill. It is also a move card. Activate one of your blue characters, and you may resolve one of that character's character upgrades. Yeah, it's arguably worse. I was thinking like if you play the other thing to flip a die, then activate your other guy off of the pushing /, you did a whole bunch of nothing, and it's not feasibly worth it. If you felt that there was a ton of Vibroswords in the meta, Trap the Blade can be very good there. So what'll happen is like Vibrosword gets rolled out, and then you like pay the 1 to mitigate the damage, and then you obviously spot your blue character, and you spend 1 resource to just kill it off. But you'd have to see a lot of it to play that. If you see someone play this and there's not enough Vibrosword being played, there's like a bunch of mono blue being played, and like the mono blue really doesn't have like the melee sides, because like the Vader deck, right? The Vader has a special, so he doesn't have melee. And then Malicos has the 2-for-1 and a base 2. So like if you kept this just for the base 2, it's like, oh, awesome. Their upgrades are also really weird because it's the Sith one that mitigates a blank has 1 melee side on it. They don't have like an Anakin saber. Neiman Mastery 1 melee on it. The Shein Mastery 1 melee on it, or like 1 melee side, not 1 melee damage. So it's like it's arguably terrible, but like because you could use it, like you could see it around. Like because you could eat the Malicos too, and each of those upgrades in theory could be killed by it, and in general kick a Viral Sword, like as a one of, I don't think it's shit terrible. Like it's okay. We unfortunately can't run an unending hate for that pokey damage that we want. Everything's not a mission plot, right? No, okay. Hmm. Resolve one of your dice showing a shield without removing it from your pool. Then resolve that die again. Spot a card with the word mastery in its title to gain a resource. I don't. If we had two shield sides, then there's the situation where like you have a mastery card, and this would be a 0 cost net 2 shield, but you have to resolve both of them, and that just makes it bad. Otherwise, it operates like a 0 cost 1 shield. Yeah, now we're in like 2 cost range, and I don't like 2 cost range. I put the one draw closer there because it's just draw closer, and it's the thing I was talking about. Yeah, so you can do character or upgrade die with draw closer. Um, I have to go back and check the other thing. I think it only flips a character die, but if it fit an upgrade, then it meant Shein Mastery. We could do a draw closer for 5. Wait a second. Resolve when a character upgrade dice showing melee damage without removing the pool. Increases value by 2 if that character has an upgrade title Neiman Mastery. So yeah, that's a little bit more restrictive in that character needed to have the Neiman Mastery on it. And seeing as Neiman would die to Shein, it's probably just much worse to try to even run that. Jedi Mind Trick, like back to that Jedi thing. Do we try the Jedi thing? I've disliked No Mercy quite heavily, but there are times where because all your deck is blue, um, paying 2 in your whole hand to get +4 and snipe a guy is viable. I don't hate Alter Fate. People do have nut rolls. I just don't like the concept of the special stuff right now. So is this a reversal for 2? Spot a blue character to remove an opponent's character. Oh, this could be character die. Damn. I'm like, I'm missing something. Decisive Blow is that one that could be real good. So the dilemma is you're paying 3 to just remove all of a character's character and upgrade dice, and you have to have had melee. So you'd roughly have to mitigate 3 dice for that, which is like not actually good. 3 for 3 damage is relatively bad. We don't get the focus on it. Oh. If you had Shein Mastery though, then you're getting like 4. To go from 1 to 5 is like okay. Yeah, these things just cost too much. Okay, so we now have a bunch of cards here. So I think the easy initial decision is to cut down until we have removal. So what are we at? 38, 44. So like from here, you would just more or less like go and start cutting. 1 second. Now let's see if we can make this big enough. Because we no longer care about what's in the deck. Actually, we do have to pick a battlefield though, so let's go get one real quick. Card support upgrade. Decrease cost by 1, then draw a card. This would be viable if we had just like cheap shit. Running cheap tends to be bad, but Abandoned Refinery works with Knighthood. If we had any other zeros that like did stuff like that, you could get a benefit from it. You'd prefer to play on something where your opponent just decides to give you the shields, though. These are actually pretty awful for us. I play too slow for some of this shit. Like, and I could never get away with it. Like, just straight up could never get away with it. Like, you can't salt flat. So, like, here's the issue. Like, doing like a Chalmers or a salt flat. The salt flat will just blank the opponent, so it's not good enough. The Chalmers, you're like, oh, well, I could re-roll, let's say, my Kylo or my Rey, which is arguably very strong. The only dilemma is your opponent steals the Chalmers, and now what ends up happening is the first time you find your special, you're not going to be allowed to have it. And, like, that is potentially very disturbing. The Weta Palace primary issue is that if you are actually slow, um, you're in danger. Because, like, so it starts with nothing on it. Um, and what ends up happening is like it's claimed to place a resource on it, or power action to place a resource. So what you could do is like you quickly go through your round, and if your opponent has a ton of stuff to do, and they have to have a ton of stuff to do, you power action to place a resource on it, and then you immediately claim after. Um, so that it'll have two resources. You go into the next round, you immediately power action to take both resources. And now you can afford some fat chi and mastery because you have 4 money, right? The dilemma is that we have a bunch of power actions in Kylo and Rey and different stuff like that. So the odds are the opponent's going to be able to just claim the Weta Palace from us. And anytime where we decide to put a power action and grab it, we're in danger of them just deciding to give up everything they're doing to just claim it. And like, in theory, that's like, well, who gives up everything? It's like, well, what 2 dice need to be there to not be worth 2 resources? Like, maybe if you had 4 damage showing, your opponent doesn't do it. But if you have, what, a single resource showing, your opponent's not going to claim and steal these 2 resources from you. Because that's a 4 resource swing. It's not, oh, they gained 2 resources, but there was 1 there. Or they gave up 4 damage and then, they got 2 resources. No. They prevented you from getting 2 resources and they got 2 resources. Like, that's a blowout. Like, that's why I like Weta Palace for, like, random stuff where, your opponent like claims, puts the thing on it, and then you like trooper steal it back, and your opponent like loses their mind. Mortis starts on day. The problem is that someone could claim, or actually, sorry, they would claim Mortis day, heal their guy, then flip it and get damage to everyone. And we don't want to ping off shields, and we don't want to lose our shields to that. So, like, sadly, Chalmers might just be the play here. Or we just Refinery and we move on. I think the Refinery is probably that interesting one that we can do. It does some weird, silly stuff. It's probably the worst of them, but it might be that one that people are just like, oh, I'm not dealing with that. And it sets up the knighthood thing much better. You could also do like a bloodlet, take a ding, focus the thing, and then a Refinery the bloodlet away to play like an upgrade. With BD ones, it's much more interesting. So now this is like Abandoned Refinery is where stuff like Yoda's lightsaber becomes interesting because it's like Yoda's lightsaber on, let's say, Kylo, roll out, use some stuff, Refinery the lightsaber away to play a 2-drop on Rey. And it's like, oh, okay. So like I think the Refinery is the one that might just scare the living shit out of the opponent. If you knighthood and throw away knighthood to go +1 resource, someone's losing their mind. The other thing is you could Forbidden Lore. You can throw away Forbidden Lore and just play a weapon or something. And you still draw the card. Like Forbidden Lore here, you didn't draw the card, so like it becomes very interesting when you think of Qui-Gon Jinn spirits and stuff like that. You can actually just gain value and then throw the die away to play an upgrade. So it's like, oh, okay. Um, so Aboleth Draw Closers is the one you have to like. Does it make sense? I don't think we have enough move. Oh no, we have Fluid Riposte. So like you could Aboleth to fix your die and then Fluid Riposte, but the card's not free. So there's not enough money. So I'm gonna cut the Aboleth. Excellent. We're gonna print screen. I'm gonna see if I can save this as is. I think I have too many cards and it'll crash. The rationale here is I'll just show you real quick. So history. It shows every time you do it and save. The important part for this is not like, oh, I built this deck. The important part for this is that you make a bunch of adjustments. You hit save. You play the deck several times. You find out that certain cards were just trashed, absolutely terrible. And you have to start thinking like, hey, well, what do I want to replace this with? And here you have a list of all those crackhead cards you like put in the deck. And you're just like, well, maybe this makes sense. And stuff like that. And you're like, okay, well, let's go find out. So yeah, all right. So let's we're gonna cut the app lesson and whatnot. I think having a bunch of dice trying to show stuff is kind of just bad precedent. Might be fine with the polarity here. I think Protect the Younglings is interesting. If like with Refinery and like potentially this Qui-Gon Spirit, that the protect the Younglings might make actual sense. And I kind of just want to try shit like this, right? The also like Stand Firm with Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit also gets better. You don't want to throw away Yoda Spirit. The focus is also kind of pertinent with your specials. So we're at 14 events right now. I'm okay with leaving this as is. We're going to have very little space, but this right here makes it so that it would be, in theory, be 10 upgrades, but we would have to decide whether we want to roll with like Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit or Bloodletting. And I might be fine with Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit. I'm concerned about taking the damage at the beginning. But let's cut these upgrades out because we have far too many. All right. So what's the issue? The issue with Jedi Holocron, to draw 3... Oh, no, because you have to spot a Jedi. That's the issue. Yeah, so that's bad. We'll cut that. Force Storm... It costs too much in comparison to Sheen Mastery. I think I'd also just be more content with Deathfield. So this is gone. Because Deathfield you can use twice, right? Like you overwrite some small thing or medium-sized thing into it, and then you roll out and you use it, and then you bring it back and use it again. And I'd say we're roughly looking at a minimum of 4 indirect from this thing each round, but it's probably in that range of like 5+. The 2 discard is feasibly strong. The 4-for-1's a little weird. But this is arguably much worse when we're looking at Refinery. Ability-wise, Sheen Training is fine. I think we have to consider it being a bad card. We want to pretty much be on like 1s and 2s or 0s and 2s, right? We play a 0 or the 1, we use it, we Refinery it away, we play a 2-drop. I think that's the realistic like case scenario. We have 19 upgrades. 2 of them are knighthoods. So we need to shave like 7 of these off, I think. So if I only have 10, and we said Untamed Power can be ridiculous, that's 2. Sheen Mastery and Neiman Mastery aren't going anywhere, we're at 6. We know for a fact we need at least 1 Anakin's, so that would be 7. We would need another redeploy, at least lightsaber there, that's 8. Palpatine makes it 9. So this is where the problem is we haven't listed any of the 1s to run. BDs would let us get double usage once we have a knighthood down, but the knighthood in theory wouldn't stay very long with assuming we got stuck on refinery. I think the value front behind this is probably fine though. The heal 2 is quite good, and then the focus is very viable, and the other stuff just does what it needs to do. So do I value this higher than Yoda's lightsaber? I don't know, but I think Jaro Topple's lightsaber just bit the bullet. We also have the Jedi lightsaber where we had to consider whether to run it or not. She in training dies here for that. So we're down to 15 dice, and the ones that we said were like essentially locks were the 2 Untamed, 2 Shi, and 2 Neiman. So we're at 6. Does this dump it right away? Yeah. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so we have a few too many. But actually, we're probably still okay. So let's recheck where we're at. We have 17, 14, and 6, so we're at 37. We have to cut 7 total cards and be content with what we have here. Event-wise, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we have essentially 10 locks and some weird counter cards. I think the stand firm is probably too weak. Shields. 1 shield side, no shield side. I think that usually just trades with whatever we're doing anyways. I don't think we have enough shields that we would actually want to throw away. Jedi lightsaber is that one where you would throw it away. I guess BD1 is also the one where you would throw it away. Yoda Spirit you wouldn't. Qui-Gon's you would. So Protect the Younglings might just be too cute. I just like the theory behind it a fair bit. Polarity costing 1 gives us some reach because it's, pay 1 ping, get our shield, Kylo, flip it over to kill a guy. And that's like our action cheat. So because of the knighthoods, that's 2. So we'd have to cut 2 of these. The Trap the Blade is the interesting one where you're just like, okay, how much do I actually want this? I think because of the way I play, I really just don't like having it. I don't like a hate card to this magnitude. Like, I'm fine having the Prescient Leap go and kill something, but I think the Trap the Blade is just overkill. Paying 2 to kill a Vibrasword seems great, but I really hate, like, dead cards. So because we have to make space, I'd rather cut that and then find out other stuff wasn't very good or whatever, and then come back and make the adjustment. I think eating the Jedi die is also incorrect now because of the refinery that we might get stuck on. So we have 12 here, and the 2 knighthoods. So I think we're okay leaving that as is for now. We recheck the counts, 18. So we're at 35. We have to cut 5. We know that like 3 of them needs to be over here. Since we cut the extra Jedi crap going on, I'm fine cutting the Yoda Spirit. If it was 1 focus, 2 focus, 2 focus, I think I would be in on the Yoda Spirit. I'm okay with the single Qui-Gons, I think. Is the fact that it costs 1. And we do have some single shield dice to work with. This +2 doesn't work very well with Shein Mastery, though. It works with Rey's Shitty Shield, though. Works with the BD1. So I think that's fine there. The BD1 is actually probably getting cut also. So I think I'd rather just... I was considering just putting the second Bloodletting. So how many abilities do we have right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? The Forbidden Lords are fine because of the refineries. So what's the option? Cut a BD1 But we could get double value or just cut a Yoda's lightsaber, which could do unblockable. Doesn't have blanks. BD1 doesn't have a resource side. That's like the main issue for BD1. Could cut the death field. We're not largely concerned about it. That is our big thing, though. Like, it's that one other big die, and I'm fine with having the one other big die. But we have to cut at least, what, 3 cards from here? Recount, 17 plus 17 is 34. I think testing 1 Bloodletting and 1 Qui-Gon's fine, because I think this is where I would consider having 2 of for one of the slots. So going 1 and 1 I think is reasonable for finding out what's going on there. And like, Stand Firm's that card, I could decide to cut for a Polarity. But I think they're sharing similar slots as well. So based on that, like, I have to cut 4 from here. I could just straight up cut a Jedi's lightsaber, cut a BD1 and a Yoda's, but then it's like, what the hell is this refinery doing? Because the refinery really needs Yoda's lightsaber and BD1. The Palp's lightsaber, we have 4 2-drops, and getting the resource is worth a lot. Bloodlet, use it, throw it away. It's also a viable option. Let's go check our chart. Right, so the chart's a little hard to do here because our 4 and 5 drop usually will overwrite something. But at base concept, we're like, all right, we have 11 zeros. What are they? Forsaken, Nullify, On Guard, Stand Firm, that's 7. 8, 9 for Knighthood, 10, 11 for Lore. So 10 plus 14 is 24, plus another 9, 33, 41, 46. I think the death field might just be overkill, but I'm not sure. So, all right, so let's say one guy dies, we have the leftover person. What 3 upgrades are we like, yeah, jackpot? Sheen Mastery, Anakin's lightsaber, and what? Regular lightsaber? Like Palp's lightsaber, we're okay with. Most of these things are actually like just super low end. You can't have the Neiman plus the Sheen on the leftover guy. So like whatever we have left needs to be viable enough, and that's why I like the 1 death field. But it messes up our mulligans pretty heavily. But we have to cut 3 from here. So let's say I cut BD1 Yoda saber and a Jedi's lightsaber. What do we have left for 2 drops? I think we have too many 3s at that point because we have 2 Sheen Masteries, 2 Anakins, a lightsaber. We're at and a death field. We have 6 big things out of like 12 dice. Stand Firm pretty much requires us to have the bigger thing. I like the lightsaber a lot, though. We can't refinery our 2 drops. We have to refinery small stuff. So, like, the supports can get refineried. We would need 1 drop to refinery into a 2 drop. So, like, the big thing is much worse with the refinery. I guess technically you can throw away a support and then play the big drop and overwrite something. So I'm fine losing this. The BD1 hat focus I think is viable. The Forbidden Lore does kind of want that 7th card, but the Forbidden Lore can also just be thrown away. Question is what are the odds I can Knighthood in BD1 some fancy stuff? BD1 plays like a similar role to Qui-Gon Spirit. They both have like the focus. They both have some shields. Qui-Gon Spirit has the resource side though to pay for itself, and then the special. If we had a buttload of shields, we could just dumpster somebody. So like this should probably actually just be the bloodletting, so we can focus properly. But the bloodletting is just pure focus, which is a weird situation for some of the shit. If Jin Spirit paid for itself, it's like, oh, okay. But with two bloodlettings, how often could I like play it, fix my die, throw it away? And then at that point, it became a power of pain, right? The Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit could get me a shield and then throw away. Could get me a focus and a throw away, which are the same as the bloodletting without the cost. Could get me the resource and then throw away, which would just be disturbingly good. So 33 cards here. How many cards could I actually throw away? So we have Knighthoods for 2 throwaways, BD1 for a throwaway, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. Prescient Leap you wouldn't throw away, 7 for the Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit. There's just barely enough where you could throw it away. It's the same number we have for cracking and using Forbidden Lore. The fact that Knighthood and Forbidden Lore is 4 zeros means if we mulligan aggressively, it's like 7 you could hit, but you'll never throw the 5 away, or you shouldn't throw the 5 away. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I think this is still fine. The one polarity I think is okay. I'd like to have a second one, but like the level of action sheets that we have are just largely not viable. I guess 2 polarity is fine because like you could hit both of them and kill somebody, but all right. I gotta make decisions. Palp's lightsaber, if we can hit it for 1, is real good. It's much better than the Jedi lightsaber. The BD1. The BD1's primarily good off of the refinery. I guess this boils down to how often you get either stuck, quote unquote, or you get to use the refinery and shit like that. Untamed Power likely falls on Rey frequently, unless we do something where we like BD1 on Rey, roll out, use BD1 refinery to this thing to put it on Kylo. I think Kylo's normally the guy that gets hit. But you usually want this on Rey because you can stop damage with it. And the shield's viable. We're all about like damage. It's weird. We have so many shields we may just have too many. But rechecking, we're at 33. We have to make like 2 more cuts there and something over here, I think. We're going to cut the stand firm, which I believe may actually just be a mistake. But now we have to cut 2 upgrades. So pretty much the options, I think, are it's BD1 Death Field, a Jedi lightsaber, or Palpatine's lightsaber. We could cut an Untamed Power and a Palp's lightsaber, but I think that's wrong. Palpatine's lightsaber helps afford the big things. I think this is wrong, but so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We only have 6 upgrades we could play round 1. If we Knighthood and Refinery, then we gained Anakin's lightsaber as playable stuff. It's probably just supposed to be this Death Field. The Death Field might just cost too much. We don't have it binds all things in the deck. Um, I'm not a huge fan of it. It requires you to like consistently play like whatever upgrades, which is probably fine. I'd rather just have, like with the refinery, like Forbidden Lore and Knighthood are just fine. You just do that shit and move on. I feel like the bloodletting is just going to be super, super important. But I'm fine giving Qui-Gon Jinn Spirit a shot. Hmm. I could just cut an Anakin's lightsaber. That just seems retarded. Or excuse my French. It seems really wrong. Like I'm re- slowing down my own deck, reducing my own deck in the process of trying to fit something else that's just weak. I really just hate Chalmans that much. I kind of do. Chalmans reroll's nice. I think I think we get forced on our battlefield like every time though. So if they're gonna force us on the battlefield, I think the refinery makes it funny. Yeah. So this is where I would lock in and just kind of see where stuff goes. And like the thing is that you don't have to, this isn't like, oh, I built this deck, I have to play it like this forever. You can get several games. You want to play against some of the top tier stuff and like just um, see how the deck operates. Like if you feel like stuff's too expensive, you make the adjustment to make stuff a little cheaper. Um, or potentially it's vice versa. I'm a little concerned that I have too many bigger upgrades because the 3/3 drops, the 2/4 drops, and the 5 drops scare me a bit. Um, but there are scenarios where like I hit a Knighthood of Forbidden Lore and like a Sheen Mastery, and then all of a sudden I have a round one Sheen Mastery, and that like you could just win the game on the back of that. Um, the Yoda Saber, anything with like what anything that would have had like two single resource sides that you could like resolve, do stuff, and then throw it away would have also been interesting. But it had to have enough usable sides. So like if this was a regular base resource, I could consider it. What's the other one? There's another one besides that, right? Oh no, it's just Jedi Holocron. You know what? The Holocron. Oh no, you have to spot a Jedi. Never mind. I was like, this makes more sense. No, you can't. You can also can't combo this with a refinery. So it's like, if it didn't have spotted Jedi to play, I think we would have gone back and put this in because in theory, it makes near viable sense as like a Qui-Gon Jinn spirit. But I think the Qui-Gon Jinn spirit, like Yoda plus the other thing, also makes interesting points. Like Knighthood, you could use early, and then like because you dump into, you'll eventually have a Jedi out. Then you're just like, okay, well now I could actually have like Discipline Mind, right? Um, because we have a very few amount of actual removal from here, but we have a lot of shields. But yeah, this is where I would start and just kind of see how things feel. I think the bloodletting or the Jedi stuff probably ends up being viable enough. The Prescient Leap, if you can reliably ramp it up, could also just be like blowouts versus people. and then you just decide I'm going to run more of these and do this other thing or blah, blah, blah. But refinery filter will be decent enough. We could also just look to see what other zeros there were. Like, there's probably something silly where, is it tantrum? Wait, I thought there was something called tantrum. Is tantrum not legal? Oh, I gotta put the stupid villain thing. That's what it was. I actually probably have to go through the stuff because I don't remember if I put the villain thing back when I did it again later. Why can't I see tantrum right now? It's current equipment or weapon. Upgrade your control to remove a die. So like you can throw away like BD1. Oh, this is an event. Oh my god. Why did I think this was something besides an event? That explains why I couldn't figure it out. Padawan braid with my refinery. It's like, got a resource, sucker. Yeah, these are pretty bad. Yeah, they're like ugly. But yeah, who knows? Find out the hard way, right, guys? But yeah, I do like the Jedi's lightsaber because the put in play effect. So like you'd play it, get my shield, override it, treats it like knighthood and stuff. But we already have knighthoods and they work better with refinery, so I'd rather not have the Jedi's lightsaber. Um, the math is probably decent enough. Like the big expensive cards you can't reliably keep round one, but we have some ones to work with the twos, so it's okay. It might be a better like 1 into a 3 scenario. But I think Untamed Power, Neiman Master, and Sheen Master are like the big sides of this. So having the Palp Saber there makes sense. It's unfortunate we just don't have like a bunch of redeploys. And I'm not giving up 2 Anakin's lightsabers for 2 lightsabers and an Anakin. That just seems bad. But all right, thanks for watching, listening, joining with me as we build this pile that may or may not be okay. Deuces.